Just as promised, here's a follow-up to a video I uploaded in 2021 outlining some Solarpunk solutions. It's become clear to me that as Solarpunk grows in popularity, it's been interpreted, reinterpreted, and in some cases, totally co-opted in many different ways. I've been seeing the usual greenwashing, eco-brutalism, and eco-modernism parading under the banner of Solarpunk, but that's to be expected. I've also been seeing a couple attempts by crypto bros and NFT heads to adopt Solarpunk for their own aims. As a result, I've also been seeing a rise in critiques of Solarpunk too. Its superficiality, its inspecificity, and claims that it's purely aesthetic, which to be fair, it is for some. Solarpunk very clearly means a lot of things to a lot of people, and I'm really not here to fight up about it. Its detractors sometimes make criticisms that I would agree with, while some of its supporters seem to call for things that I definitely wouldn't. All I can do is present my ever-evolving vision of Solarpunk, as I've interpreted it and transformed it for my own ends. For those out of the loop, Solarpunk is on a bit of a spectrum, from pure aesthetic hopeful imagining to actually building our collective futures here and now. Solarpunk aims to look beyond the limitations of capitalism and beyond the rift between humanity and nature. Most importantly, it's a project and vision of liberation that we co-create for our unique local conditions, ecosystems, and needs as we work towards a better society. Solarpunk isn't something to be imposed from above through capitalist ventures or state projects. It's grassroots and must incorporate the voices, experiences, and inputs of a wide range of people. But I digress. Regardless of your stance on Solarpunk, I hope you'll enjoy this exploration of even more Solarpunk solutions. Forests encompass roughly a third of the Earth's land surface. Broadly speaking, there are three main types: boreal, temperate, and tropical. And of course, within these categories, there are countless unique permutations adapted to every corner of the planet, from the biodiverse moist broadleaf Amazonia to the frigid Siberian taiga. Forests play a crucial role in the well-being of countless flora and fauna, the stability of the climate, and the health of our soils and aquifers. Thus, it is vitally important that we manage our forests responsibly and sustainably. We know humans are capable of considerate forest cultivation because the pre-colonial Americas were filled with carefully managed forest ecosystems. But unfortunately, seen through the eyes of capitalism and the state a la James C. Scott, forests are now primarily viewed as a resource to be exploited for potential revenue. This abstract and utilitarian view of the forest erases the unique properties and uses of each tree, its contributions to the whole, and its relations to other creatures, in favor of a singular metric, like lumber or pasture. The wood forests provide is absolutely vital, but they're more than just sources of wood. Forests have been and can be vast, complex, and invaluable social places for hunting, gathering, fishing, trapping, worship, refuge, and more. They're going to play an important role in our transition to more resilient and sustainable modes of living. The forest management practice of coppicing has been used since the Neolithic to harvest wood without killing trees. The principle of coppicing is based on many trees' natural ability to regrow from damaged stems or roots. So when coppicing, cuts near the base of the tree develop many new shoots for later harvest. Pollarding is similar, except pollard trees are cut a meter or two above the ground in order to support grazing animals in the forest without them eating out the shoots. With rotation cycles sometimes as short as 2 to 4 years, coppiced and pollard trees supported the architecture and manufacturing needs of countless communities. For some tree species, age decreases this ability to sprout, so they tend to be replaced with new trees, but for other tree species, the coppice stools can be more than 1,000 years old and still provide shoots. And get this, coppice forests can have a richer biodiversity than unmanaged forests, because they always have areas with different stages of light and growth, supporting a diversity of plant and animal life throughout the cycles. Coppiced forests can contain a variety of different tree species too. Chestnuts for barrels, willows for tools, and hazels for roofing, among other uses. Plus, they can provide food like fruits, nuts, honey, mushrooms, and more. Back in the day, coppice forests were held and managed in common, for the benefit of the entire community. But coppicing was phased out as fossil fuels came to dominate. With the inevitable downfall of fossil fuels, we need to rediscover these more localized production methods. After all, sustainable forest management is essentially local. Coppicing may not be able to sustain the high energy, high consumption world we live in today, but in the end, nor can fossil fuels. The way we live is going to need to adjust. That's part of the prefigurative process of creating a Solarpunk society, developing resilient systems, structures, institutions, and practices. As we move towards a Solarpunk future, I believe coppicing may be an invaluable practice for integrating humanity and nature ethically and sustainably. Humans, like all living things, need energy. In fact, more than ever, we've wielded energy to keep our modern world spinning. From light bulbs to the internet, energy is essential for powering our daily lives. These days, we get most of our energy from fossil fuels, but it is violently destructive to our health and the health of our planet. They fuel a level of consumption that is ultimately anomalous and unsustainable in the long term. So as we transition toward more renewable energy sources, we also need to seriously cut back on how much energy we consume overall. We don't usually think about how our electricity gets to us. Large-scale power plants deliver electricity through poles and wires that reach and power our homes and other spaces. But as long as we can flip a switch and have a light turn on, we don't really have to think about it. However, as natural disasters and climate change threaten our communities, it's important that we start developing more resilient energy systems. Community microgrids have the potential to both help us reach long-term sustainability goals and build resilience in the face of storms, wildfires, droughts, and other calamities that threaten the macro grid. Microgrids are localized groups of renewable electricity sources and storage facilities that operate within defined electrical and geographic boundaries. Microgrids are flexible and capable of operating independently of the macrogrid in island mode, but they can also link up with other microgrids to create a grid of microgrids, generating an interwoven network that can weather damages to any individual microgrid. These systems can also allow us to reliably power places like hospitals during emergencies. Most importantly, microgrids empower communities as active participants in energy production and consumption, thus developing their consumption consciousness. However, creating a microgrid, whether from scratch or out of the existing network infrastructure, is going to require some substantial planning and organization, as well as a good bit of space and capital. Community microgrids need energy storage facilities in order to be independently reliable, because when the sun's not shining, solar panels alone won't cut it. By pooling resources with neighbors, the foundations of a community microgrid with a diversity of energy sources could potentially be put in place, but funding alone is not enough. Utility companies, which have long enjoyed an unchallenged energy monopoly, will threaten the implementation of community microgrids in some areas. But regardless, I believe communities should have the ability to manage our local resources in tune with our local environment and decide on a local level how we live and address these challenges. That doesn't mean there can't be broader cooperation and accountability, but autonomy should be the bedrock of community organization. And speaking of communities, human communities have existed for as long as humans have, and humans, like all creatures, produce waste. After we eat and drink, we defecate and urinate into toilets, hopefully, where our waste is carried through this where our waste is carried through the sewage system and either treated or untreated at high energy consuming wastewater treatment plants. These treatment plants produce effluent, which is the high nutrient liquid waste discharged into a body of water that stimulates a process known as eutrophication. The process pollutes bodies of water with excessive levels of nutrients, which cause algal blooms that produce toxins, deplete the oxygen in the water, and degrade the entire ecosystem, killing fish and other aquatic life. Solutions typically involve limiting agricultural and sewage runoff, but we need to figure out a way to cycle those valuable nutrients back into the ecosystem in a more sustainable way. The problem with eutrophication is that the nutrients being released into the environment are too concentrated for it to absorb, but sewage effluent is filled with great nutrients like nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus. Humans, therefore, need to figure out how we can smoothly integrate our activities into the cycles of nature. We're part of it, after all, not toxic, burdensome outsiders. One proposed solution involves the integration of sewage treatment and fish farming, a practice that has traditionally been in use in Vietnam, Indonesia, and China for centuries. Human waste is carefully introduced to ponds, which feed oxygen-producing algae and phytoplankton that can then feed the fish, which are caught and sold in local markets. Every year, the ponds are drained, and the sludge at the bottom of fish droppings and sediments are scooped up for fertilizer, and the cycle begins anew. In Hanoi, Vietnamese farming cooperatives pumped untreated wastewater into large ponds. Through a series of trial and error, they were able to determine the right sewage to freshwater ratio needed to prevent fatal nutrient concentration. They kept catfish, carps, and tilapia, and planted water hyacinths to prevent erosion, feed livestock, and draw out heavy metals from the water. Eventually, in 1995, this system provided 40 to 50% of Hanoi's total fish supply every year. And before you ask, studies have shown that the water in the fish ponds meet international standards of water treatment. However, as the Vietnamese economy liberalized and the city expanded, increased industrial waste poisoned the sewage available to fish, so farmers switched to pelleted feed. A similar system still exists in Kolkata, India. Their generations-old fish farms are able to provide 40% of the region's fish production and process 80% of the city's sewage, saving the city millions in sewage treatment costs. The remarkable skill required of local farmers to read the type and quality of the effluent based on hues alone allows them to regulate their wastewater use to an astounding degree, and the sewage-to-water ratio of 1:4 keeps the water up to par with the quality of conventional treatment. These systems have existed across Europe too. As people began to realize that, hey, maybe we should figure out a way to treat our sewage, civil engineers and scientists constructed small fish ponds to test the quality of municipal sewage treatment plants, using the livability standards of trout. In the late 1880s, German civil engineer Gustav Oysten began experimenting with different fish species, designs for ponds, and various local and weather conditions to treat wastewater with fish. The benefits are clear. Wastewater fish ponds process waste, reintroduce nutrients back into the system, improve soil quality, develop local resilience, provide opportunities for leisure through fishing, help replenish groundwater, reduce energy-intensive treatments and chemical inputs, and generate a steady source of protein for farmers, all at a low cost and low tech, allowing for easy implementation in a variety of settings, which benefits poor communities with little access to capital. There is that grossness factor, despite the advantages of these systems, but in the research on urban fish ponds, there's actually a surprising level of acceptance of waste-fed fish. Not to mention, a good chunk of the world's population, knowingly or unknowingly, already consumes food irrigated with wastewater, and not just in the global south. There's significant evidence of the safety of aquaponic sewage treatment, even on a large scale. However, widespread implementation of these ideas will require much larger transformations. The high prevalence of toxic industrial waste is too much for our ecosystems and aquacultures to absorb, creating a damaging rift that needs to be addressed by changes in both production and consumption. The environmental costs keep being pushed downstream, but they're catching up to us already. Wastewater aquacultures may seem messy, backwards, and primitive to some, but they are far more sustainable and resilient than the unstable, damaging systems we have been relying on for so long. As members of Earth's living community, we have a greater responsibility to correct our course. We need to take on the challenge of building resilience in this tumultuous time. Through the power of human cooperation, the practices of respectful Earth stewardship, and the responsible, tempered use of our technological potential, a better world is possible. All power to all the people. Peace. This video was made in collaboration with Our Changing Climate. Check out his latest video, linked in the description, for even more Solarpunk solutions. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your fellow peoples. Thanks once again, of course, to the family, including our newest members, ILL State Fishing and Day Sanchez. Join these beautiful humans and support me too on patreon.com/sainttrue. Check out all my other videos for a range of radical topics. Follow me on Twitter @_sainttrue. Thanks again. Peace.